So do you think we should send people to Mars or Moon to spend all this money on space travel?
Well, I think we should. Space travel can give people hope for the future, and space travel can unite people from different countries for a common goal.
But do any countries work together to travel in space?
Oh, certainly. The International Space Station has astronauts from different countries working together. And I think that a joint effort is the best way to do space missions. I think that we could go back to the moon and learn much more by going there than we can learn if we don't go there.
I see what you mean. But I think we could learn more and we could improve more if we can help the people on Earth. Think of everything we could learn from the children that can't get an education these days. Maybe the next Einstein is a poor little girl who doesn't have the money to go to school. If we spent more money on school or clean water and vaccines, maybe we could learn more from ourselves than from going to space and going to Mars.
I agree with you that more should be spent on education, but we don't need the next Einstein if we're not doing space travel. The problem is, what are people with money willing to spend it on? I think that it would be nice if we could have all the rich countries spend money on education for poor people. But if you look at the numbers, the cost of one space mission is much cheaper than the things we spend money on now.
Like what?
Well, the first example that comes to mind is war. One day of war is so expensive for all the governments and the militaries that are involved. One day of war costs more money than one space mission. But war goes on and on for days.
Yeah, and years.
So, if you think about money in terms of, so the money for a space mission is expensive by itself, but when you compare it to other things, it's actually kind of cheap.
I see what you are saying. You are comparing the cost of space travel to war. But I would compare the cost of space travel to the cost of, for example, getting rid of malaria. I think we could get rid of a terrible disease like malaria for as much as we would spend on a trip to Mars.
Getting rid of malaria or going to Mars? Well, of course, I would also choose that we get rid of malaria.
Maybe we shall have to agree to disagree.
We might have to disagree this time.
Okay. We have been hearing a lot about Mars in the news.
Yeah, NASA keeps coming out with announcements every year.
We just found out that there's water on Mars, liquid water.
Yes, recently they revealed that there's evidence of liquid water.
That's crazy.
Last year they announced that they definitely found ice, solid water, in the soil. In the soil on Mars' surface they found frozen water. Now they found evidence of liquid water flowing.
Do you think people can go to Mars? Do you think we should send people to Mars?
I definitely think we can go there. We have already sent a number of spacecraft to Mars, starting with satellites many decades ago. Then there were landers, where satellites landed on the surface and sent data back to Earth. Then we sent the rovers. Little robot cars that drive around on Mars, so we have already successfully sent many missions to Mars. I am sure we can do it with humans.
But none of the satellites or landers or rovers, they have never come back. Do you think we could send people and they would come back safely?
Well, that is a problem. We could definitely send people to Mars, but bringing them back, having the astronauts come back to Earth, would be a much more difficult problem to solve.
So you think maybe we would send astronauts to Mars? They would never come back safely?
Well, if you think about the old explorers, in the olden days, explorers used to leave their home and find new regions and not plan to go back. People used to take a risk and maybe they could not return. So I think there are people who are willing to go on a one-way trip to Mars. I am sure there are people willing to do that, but are the rest of the people willing to send someone on that mission? I think some people will say yes, and some people will say no. I don't know what the percent would be, but I am willing to allow someone to do that. If someone says I want to go to Mars, I know it's a one-way trip, but I want to go. I think that's okay. We should let them go.
How about you? Would you volunteer to go?
Oh, no. Not me. I'm staying here on Earth.
Okay.
James, tell me about your day. What time do you wake up?
Well, let's see. Some days I wake up early. Maybe about 6 o'clock. Yeah, sometimes I wake up at 6 o'clock. When I get up early, I like to get ready for the day, take a shower and have breakfast. But other days, I don't like getting up early. Maybe I'll sleep in until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah. I like sleeping in late. So sometimes, I wake up at 11 o'clock. On those days, if I know I won't wake up until 11 o'clock, I'll take a shower the night before I go to bed. How about you, Sarah? When do you usually wake up?
Well, I like every day to be the same. So I wake up every day at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, and I always do the same thing. First, I make coffee right away. Then I wake up my kids and we have breakfast together at about 8:30.
Really?
Yes. We usually have something easy like bread and yogurt and fruit.
I like to have coffee every morning, whether I wake up at 6 o'clock or at 10 o'clock. I'm still going to have coffee, but I often skip breakfast. Do you always eat breakfast every day?
Yes. If I don't eat breakfast, I'm so hungry. What about lunch? What time do you have lunch?
Lunch is the same every day for me. I always eat lunch at 12:30 p.m. So whenever I wake up, I do some things and then I always have lunch at 12:30 p.m., just half past noon. And I always have a simple lunch. Maybe some soup or spaghetti or a sandwich. Something light, and it's always at half past noon. What time do you eat lunch?
That's interesting. I have breakfast at the same time every day, but lunch is always at a different time.
Really?
Because I'm busy in the morning. I go out, maybe I go shopping. Sometimes I clean the house. So I might have lunch at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. Sometimes as late as 2:30.
Oh, that's getting late.
Yes. But it's always easy lunch like you. Maybe crackers and cheese or a sandwich or a baked potato.
I see.